Hello folks, and welcome to the Work of Northern Ireland Bird Photographers 2021. This presentation is normally made at our annual show in the Ulster Museum, but due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, as happened last year, we have not been able to get together this year. This competition is run by the Northern Ireland Ornithologists Club, and its purpose is to showcase the work of bird photographers based in Northern Ireland. We apologise if the quality of the pictures have been degraded a little in the process of compiling this video, but we thought it was important to let you see the breadth and quality of the work being produced by our photographers, and of course to hear the comments that our guest judge made on each of the images. Our guest judge for this year is the well-known wildlife and bird photographer Kevin Hazelgrove from the south of England. Kevin last judged our competition in 2019, and we're indebted to him for taking on the job again this year, which involved a lot of extra work as a result of COVID-19. Kevin has travelled extensively around the world photographing birds and wild animals. He is a regular on the island of Lesbos, and when he judged last and delivered the Sam Penny Memorial Lecture in 2019, he shared with us some of the images that he had taken as he travelled around the world, from the black-winged stilt on the island of Lesbos, the lammergeier in the Drakensberg Mountains in South Africa, the Peary Duke, better known as the red-necked phalarope on the Shetland Islands. But this year, with travel curtailed, he's had to spend more time close to home, where he's taken some wonderful shots of barn owl, grey partridge, red-legged partridge, snipe in the snow, and possibly one of my favourites, the Dartford warbler at Thursley Nature Reserve in the south of England. The competition is judged in 4 categories: junior, beginners, intermediate and advanced, and there's a special award for the judge's favourite image taken in Northern Ireland. Up to 3 images of birds may be submitted by each entrant in the junior, beginner and intermediate categories, and up to 6 images in the advanced. The photographs must have been taken by the entrant within the last 5 years. Only entries comprising 6 images in the advanced and 3 images in the beginner and intermediate categories will be eligible in the portfolio sections. No photographs should have been taken at or near the nest. No more than 1 image of any species should be submitted. Images, or any part thereof, submitted in any previous NIOC shows are not eligible. Only images of wild birds should be submitted. Images of domestic, feral, or captive birds are not eligible. And so we move on to our images for this year. Unfortunately, we had no entries in the junior section, and so we move straight on to the beginners. And our first photographer in the beginners section was Paul McGahey, and Paul uses a Nikon D3000 with a Sigma 70-300 lens. His first shot is through the window of the house of a hawfinch. The judge said a top subject with delightful setting. Quality and sharpness, etc. lost due to shooting through glass, unfortunately. His second shot, taken in the Farne Islands of a puffin, the judge said either a tighter crop or more breathing room needed for the bird. Nice jaunty pose though. The third shot of a sparrowhawk taken through the window. Fabulous, look at this sprock, great colours, grass not sticking out of the head, good positioning. Our second photographer is Andy Carden, and he uses a Panasonic Lumix TZ70 with a standard lens, and his first shot is of pale-bellied brent taken in Dundrum, County Down. The judge said the wet feel to this is nice, the water droplets, the shining birds, but the white is blown on the top bird. It's a bit hard to ignore, unfortunately. His next shot of a raven taken in Newcastle Nice to show the habitat in a shot, but the raven facing away loses connection with the subject. His third shot, again in Newcastle, of a great northern diver. The judge said the angle of the bird is good as it shows off that impressive bill. Our next photographer is Brian Moore, and Brian uses a Canon 77D with a 75 to 300mm lens. His first shot, taken in a hide and carry duff of a long-tailed tit, the judge said, nice angle on this bird showing off its name, giving its body part. Unfortunately, it's on a bird feeder. The second one is of a blue tit, also in carry duff. Lovely detail, nice alert pose, just needs more space for subject to look into. And his third shot of a robin, also in carry duff, a little too much in the shadows, but the photo shows the habitat setting nicely. Our next photographer is Patricia Moore, and Patricia uses a Panasonic Lumix DZ1000 with a 25 to 400mm lens, and her first shot is of a robin taken in the River Lagan. Judge said lovely vibrant colours, needs more space above the head though. The second shot, also on the Lagan, is of a cormorant. Good to see all the bird in the clear. Pose is very nice, whites on breast have unfortunately blown. And our third shot, again on the Lagan, of a heron. Judge said super composition and sharpness is good too. Combination of light and shadow here is nice. Our next photographer is Jonathan Cook. Jonathan uses a Canon 90D with a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot is of a goldcrest taken in Woodburn. A really lovely shot showing the diminutive size of the bird. Sharp, in good light, wing spread is detailed, composition is spot on. Second shot is of a little egret. Exposed well, dark background shows off the bird fantastically. Head angle of egret, a bit of a minus though. The third shot is a stone chat taken in Island McGee. Great details, the symmetry of the twigs works nicely to create a frame around the chat. Next we have Jenny Bradley, and Jenny uses a Sony RX10 with a 24 to 600mm lens. Her first shot is taken from a hide at Oxford Island of a great crested grebe. Sweet reflection, a sense of calm with the smooth water. The second shot, taken in Cumber of a sand martin, super close up with head and eye perfectly lit and sharp. Great connection with the subject and the viewer. Our third shot of a cold tit taken in Mount Stewart. The judge said it was a little underexposed and too much shadow over the face, so eye contact is lost. Pose is nice and perky. Then we have Stephen McComb, and Stephen uses a Canon with a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot is of a long-eared owl, and the judge said the bird is really shown up nicely due to the light sky and dark foliage. As good a view as you'd hope for too. Second shot is of a puffin taken on the Saltese. Absolutely stunning image of a fan favourite. Love, love, love the foreground blur. Sea pink, sweet touch too, and perfect light. Stephen's third shot is of a great spotted woodpecker. The judge said the colours and smooth background are a delight. The pose is good, but I'm not really a fan of barbed wire. Next up is Ryan Campbell, and Ryan uses a Canon 1300D with a 55 to 250mm lens. His first shot is of a chestnut-headed bee-eater taken in Sri Lanka. Judge said plus points having the bee-eater facing into some space, so nice composition and framing, good detail. His second shot is of a black-collared hawk taken in the Amazon and the Columbia. The bird is posing well and the habitat is nicely shown here. His third shot is of a rufous-collared sparrow taken in Bogota in Colombia. Again, framed really nicely. Love the coloured leaves and the light spots behind. The pose on the subject is great too. Fabulous. Next up is Julie Silvers, and Julie uses an Olympus EM5 with a 75 to 300mm lens. Her first shot of a mute swan taken in Mount Stewart. Interesting having the rear bird calmly floating along, contrasting with all the action of the front bird. Nice juxtaposition. Shame the rear bird is more in focus. Her second shot is of a grey heron taken in Groomsport. A pleasantly composed photo, but needs a bit more contrast added in post-processing. Her third shot of a little egret taken in the blue wetlands. Reflection is great, well exposed, branch a bit of a distraction. And that concludes all the entries in the beginner section. Our first photographer in the intermediate section is Justin Judge, and Justin uses a Canon 7D with a 100 to 400mm lens. His first shot is of a hoopoe taken in Athens in Greece, and the judge said, "The catchlight gives life to the hoopoe and makes it stand out against the similar coloured surroundings." His second shot of a mute swan at Oxford Island, a very nice example of minimalism. I would have liked to see the swan a bit more to the left as it's looking right, but still a memorable frame. His third shot of an oyster catcher at the Mew Island in the Copelands, a different type of oyster catcher pick. Pinks and violets add lovely colour to an already vibrant image. Next photographer is Kevin Kirkham, who uses a Nikon D500 with a Tamron 150 to 600mm lens. First shot of a great blackback gull at Ardglass Harbour. I wanted to zoom in to see what the prey item was, so the photo caught my attention. A lower angle would have elevated this perfectly exposed image higher. The second shot of a sparrowhawk taken in Lisburn. Fantastic! Look at this beauty. The eye contact is intensely good and the composition is nice with the raptor not central. Kevin's final shot is of oyster catchers in Larne Bay. The blacks, whites, oranges and greys are beautifully shown as working well together here. I'd like its abstractness more if there was another bird in the top right. Our next photographer is Juliet Fleming, who uses a Canon 700D and a 7D with a 100 to 400mm lens. Juliet's first shot of a pied wagtail in County Down from a hide. Judge said wonderful details, a puffed up in the snow wagtail, exposed nicely, and the complementary surrounding tones and colours are great. Her next shot of a long-tailed tit in County Down, quality again with the details, tail pointing up is a nice feature of the photo overall. Her final shot of a buzzard in County Down, good job capturing the buzzard's head clear of all the leaves, works almost like a magic eye picture. Interesting. Our next photographer then is Paul Hunter. Paul uses a Canon 5D Mark IV with a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot is of knot at Kinnegar. A great photo for anyone unfamiliar with this species. Excellent details and scattered shells are a nice feature too. Next shot of a great spotted woodpecker. Classic great spotted woodpecker pose. Food in beak adds interest. Harsh light and shadows made it difficult to expose right, and the tree is a bit too bright. Final shot of a grey heron in Victoria Park in Belfast. Pleasing composition. Reflection is lovely. Shows what the bird does. Stands motionless. Next photographer is Eileen O'Rourke. She uses a Canon with a 150 to 600mm lens. Their first shot is of a wood pigeon in Loch Ness. A common bird shown in a not so common way. The pose and feather details are outstanding and make you look longer. Then a robin again at Loch Ness. The head needs to be a bit more turned around to show the catchlight or engage contact with the robin better. And finally a puffin taken in the Saltese. Love the angles here. Both head of puffin and sea pink match, plus both bird and flowers both have their own space, so great composition. Next we have Albert Boyle. Albert uses a Nikon D500 with a Sigma 200 to 400. First shot is of a grey heron taken at Peatlands in Dungannon. Beautiful light and feathers on the bird are highlighted wonderfully here. Lovely setting. Next, a common tern at Rockabill. Fascinating image with the second bird suggesting a colony is nearby in the same way the building does. Bird almost in the spotlight due to vignette. Albert's final image is of gulls squabbling in Portrush Harbour. A very striking image with fab interaction between the three birds, almost like a painting, but that's not a bad thing. Next up is Robert McDowell, who uses a Canon 77D with a 100 to 400mm lens. His first shot is of a kestrel taken in Fuerteventura. A very regal looking pose on this kestrel. I'd say the post is a bit too big and matches the bird for what stands out most. Then we have a great white egret in Larnloch. Good composition and gentle light tones, showing the concentration levels of this species nicely. And finally, a sparrowhawk at Island Magee. An amazing moment captured very well here. Kudos for the relatively low angle that involves you in the scene more. And those eyes. Naomi Briers is next, and she uses a Panasonic FZ72 bridge camera. Her first shot is of a little grebe at Balnahinch. The ring-stroke whirlpool around the grebe is eye-catching. However, close scrutiny reveals too much noise in the image. Next shot of a bullfinch at Lambeg. I like the thirds that the pic is divided into, and it's an unusual subject. Good job. Finally, goldfinch also in Lambeg. A bit too much digital noise again here, plus a bit too many distracting elements going on here. Brian Carey is our next photographer. Brian uses a Canon 5D Mark IV with a 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot of black-headed gulls and newtonards. A jolly nice pose here with good wing positions, but a tad over-processed, giving an unnatural look. Then we have a ring plover at Kinnegar, nicely composed with all the habitat elements included. Again, over-sharpened a little for my taste. And finally, a lapwing and newtonards, a lovely reflection. Leg up is a nice touch to bird almost in a natural spotlight, which is good. Jeff Silvers is up next. Jeff uses an Olympus EM10 Mark II with a 12 to 200mm lens. His first shot is of a grey heron in Victoria Park. A decent bit of action going on here, but overall a bit too busy with background. Next shot of a kingfisher, again in Victoria Park. Not quite enough shutter speed to freeze the action, although the action is good. And then finally a robin, also in Victoria Park. I can hear this robin singing in my head due to the capture of it with beak open and head tilted back. Pleasantly done. Now we move on to Swarup Sankar Savidazan, and he uses a Nikon D500 with a Nikon 200 to 500mm lens. First shot of a blue tit in Victoria Park, as sharp as can be without being over sharpened. Blue tit nicely framed by branches, interestingly nice background too. Beak is open is good also. Then a wren in the bog meadows, love the composition, small bird, small in the frame, good. Background colours are really pleasing to the eye, pity about the barbed wire. And finally, the grey heron in the bog meadows. Immediately the viewer is drawn to the size of the fish. Whoa! Nice and sharp, in focus throughout, habitat shown too, fabulous action. Our next photographer is Rebecca Topless, who uses a Nikon D5300 with an 18 to 55mm lens. First shot is of a long-eared owl taken at Oxford Island. Considering the lack of focal length, enough detail remains to see immediately what the species is. Her second shot, taken at the Black Loch of a mallard. Nice side light showing the breast markings well. Shadowy shape at the top plus the branch at the side, very distracting however. And finally, also at the Black Loch, a song thrush. Good composition, and the whole cold feel of the photo makes you appreciate the hardships birds go through in winter. Next is Sam Price, and Sam uses a 7D Mark II with a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot is of a kingfisher in Cardiff. Extra points for the position of the fish. Love the background colours. Bird pose is perfect, as shows blues and oranges really well. Then a great white egret taken at Ballycarry. The whirlpool and water drops tell the story of this fish's capture, and the angles of the egret are nice too. And finally, a Eurasian jay taken in Cardiff. Judge says the light here is really nice, exposed perfectly, the pose is good, if only the tail was cocked so we could see the entire bird. And that concludes the intermediate section. We now move on to the advanced section, and there are 6 images in each portfolio. And our first photographer is Guy Hamilton, and he uses the Canon 7D or a 5D Mark II with a 100 to 400mm lens. His first shot is of a black guillemot taken in Malile. Super details, love the water droplets, but needs either more space around the bird or a tighter crop. Secondly, we have our rock pipit taken in Malile. Lovely composition, subject looking into the frame, sharp and on a rock, giving context. Next is a turnstone taken in Sandy Cove in Dublin. Excellently exposed. I like the second bird. Shame the orange feet aren't showing. Our next shot is of a Mediterranean gull from Sandy Cove in Dublin. Judd said a very clean looking image, good subject, but eye contact detail lost as shooting down on the subject. And we have a black-headed gull taken in Sandy Cove. Very nice wing speed, exposure spot on, head in the clear, two-tone background good too. And finally, a red shank taken at Whitehead. Fabulous details, bird a bit too central for my tastes. Our second photographer is Michael Latham, who uses a Canon 90D with a Sigma Sport 150 to 600mm lens. And his first shot is of a sandwich tern taken in Groomsport. Very nice indeed. A little wing blur is good as it adds movement. Both turns in focus, perfect timing. Secondly, a kestrel in the Antrim Hills. Not easy to capture a catchlight in the eye of a hovering kestrel, but managed it due to being on eye level, sharp throughout. And a great white egret in Ballycarry. Like the toes just touching the water. Again, correct exposure and nicely framed. A long-tailed tit comes next with, again in Ballycarry. Great background, super detail, just a tad more space needed for the bird to look into. Then a water pipit in Cushendun. Delightful composition with nice, subtly varied colours. A good subject bird too. And finally, a rose-coloured starling from Dundrum in County Down. Great quality, unusual to get such an image of a rarity. Water droplets are money. Then we have Stuart McQueen. Stuart uses a Canon 7D Mark II with a 100 to 400 Mark II lens. And his first shot is of a Benelli's eagle taken in Spain. Magnificent bird, portrayed as that, like the wary over-the-shoulder pose. Then to Lesbos for bee eaters. Wonderful colours, tamarisk better than rusty wire. If only the top bird was incoming. Next one's a green heron taken in Costa Rica. Can't find fault in this, especially if not from a hide. Then we have a kestrel from Spain. I like the angle of the left bird relative to the stump, coming down from the corner of the frame. A good interaction. Then we have a golden hooded tanager in Costa Rica. Well composed with a bird either side of the leaf. Interest added by the different states of plumage. And then finally an orange-chinned parakeets from Costa Rica. This could easily be a candid shot of two people chatting. Very eye-catching in low key. Then we go to Martin Lamb. And Martin uses a Nikon D500 and a D7100 with an 80 to 400mm lens. His first shot was a robin. The bird really stands out against the dark background, very sharp, especially considering apparent low light. Also from Dunmurry and Belfast, photo of a dunnock. Nice pose on this dunnock, just needs more space below it to be looking into. And then a blue tit, really nice, fantastic feather, detail throughout, especially on crown where I usually mess up. The fourth shot is of a song thrush, an iconic image, almost could be from an old bird book, song thrush with a snail, but needs more breathing space. Pick, not the snail, snail breathes no more. Then we have a little owl in Spain, extra marks for an alert, not sleepy, angry little owl. Complementary colours, lichen are very good. Finally, a pygmy owl in Romania, fabulous to get a shot of this species, a bit too big in the frame, makes it misrepresentative size-wise. Next we move to William Smighton, who uses a Canon 7D Mark II and a Canon 100-400 Mark II with a 1.4 teleconverter. His first shot is of a whitethroat in Groomsport, nice catch light, twig below the tail is unfortunately a tad distracting. Next, a black guillemot in Groomsport, very well done with exposure. 99% of my shots blew the whites on this species. The straight lines of the harbour wall and the horizon work well. Next we have a teal in Victoria Park in Belfast. Considering I'm a stickler for go low or go home waterbird shots, I love this. Complementary colours and whirlpool effect are fabulous. Then a dunnock also in Victoria Park. Only small issue for me is the twig behind going into the dunnock's head. Nice details otherwise. Then a redshank also in Victoria Park. Not an easy bird to capture in flight. Bravo! I was going to be negative about the head angle, but actually it kind of works. And then finally, a pied wagtail and white head. The colours of the bird and the background blend a bit too much. Doesn't make it easy for viewers' eye to pick it up quickly. Next we have Richard Smith, who uses a Nikon D850 with a Nikon 500mm and 80-400mm lens, and all his shots were taken in Costa Rica. The first is of a fiery billed aracari, differently nice. The leaf adds to it positively. Secondly, it's a white-tipped sicklebill. Good mood to this. The darkness seems appropriate, as sicklebill have the obvious Grim Reaper vibe about them. I know it's a scythe, but still. Thirdly is the king vulture. Outstanding clarity and details. Personally, I'd have the eye more to the right as it's looking to the left. Then we have an Amazon kingfisher from a boat. Hard to compose from a boat, so top marks for that. Spot on. Richard's fifth shot is of a yellow-thighed finch. The judge said, a bit too much of the sign. Shame the bird and the prey aren't closer. And his final shot, taken with a multi-flash setup, is of a Talamanca hummingbird. The judge said that it was fascinating to see the multi-flash catch lights in the hummer's eye. The colours are lush, perfect composition. Jerry Bond is next up, and he uses a Canon 7D with a Canon 400mm and 200mm lens. His first shot, taken in McGilligan, is of a blue tit. Really good action, wing speed and feet add dynamism. Lightened, however, too much and therefore unrealistic looking. The second shot's of a calandra lark in Bulgaria. Very good to capture a lark in flight. Too much digital noise, however, as cropped too much. Next shot's of an Isabelline wheat ear in Bulgaria. A great species. Nice composition and light. Then we have a puffin from Skomer. Very good balance throughout. Composition, action and colours, all good. Then in McGilligan, Siskin. Almost. The focal point is on a sharp wing, but sadly the head is slightly out of focus. And finally, from Bulgaria, a woodlark. Really lovely composition and complementary background. Alistair Gordon is up next, and he uses a Sony A7 II with a Tamron 150-600mm lens. And his first shot, taking walking in Carrickfergus, is of a mute swan. Lovely details, the water droplets are fab. Just looking down on it a bit loses a mark. Eye level works better for me. Then we've got a little egret from the bridge at Ballycarry. Nice catch and exposed really well. Head angle not quite there. And then a mallard in Carrickfergus, gorgeous light, nice reflection, good habitat shot. Then from Oxford Island there's a jay, a bit too frame filling, plus too much food in the pick, but head in the light is good. And then we've got a blue tit also at Oxford Island, very nicely backlit, plus eye contact is good too, delightful. And then finally a robin at Oxford Island, memorable as never seen such a slim looking robin. Interesting foot up pose, but way too much seed. Next we have Slavomir Starzinski, and he uses a Canon 7D Mark II with a Canon 400mm and Tamron 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot of a rock pipit taken in Portrush. Everything is good in this, maintains quality. Then we've got from a hide in Iona a corncrake. Superb subject, low angle of shot makes it feel like the viewer is creeping through the grass with the bird. Spot on. Then from Portrush, oystercatcher and redshank. Very different in a good way. Colours really pop out in lovely light. From the Treshnish Isles, an Atlantic puffin. Engaging behavioural shot. Bird poo is slightly distracting, unfortunately. And then we've got a wren from Ballyronan. Super details, like the mossy perch, can almost hear it singing. And then finally from Costa Rica, a rufous-tailed hummingbird. The judge likes the way the flower reaches the edge of the frame, making the rule of thirds spot on. Nice pastel colours too. Our next photographer is Gary Wilkinson, who uses a 5D Mark IV and a Canon 100 to 400mm lens. His first shot is of a turnstone in Port Stewart. The judge says, head not quite in focus, but a purposeful pose on the bird is good. Secondly, a chiffchaff from Hillsborough. Delightful, nice to see, not overcropped. Environment can make an image, case in point. Then a willow warbler from Hillsborough. An interesting pose and again plenty of space around the bird. A kestrel from Yorkshire. Nice bit of wing movement, suggest landing or balancing. Framed very well. Fifth one is of a fieldfare in Hillsborough. Pleasing colours and light, laying down if possible to get eye level perspective would have gotten extra brownie points. And finally from Slieve-na-Cloy, a white throat. Again, very nice composition, bird in the clear is good. Next we've got Mervyn Campbell, who uses a Nikon D500 with a Nikon 200 to 500mm lens, and his first shot is of a hen harrier taken in the Antrim Hills. Top bird, really clear image showing all the finer details. Wondering how a vertical frame would look, it's a bit too central. Then we have a sanderling from McGilligan, very, very nice. Low level, colours and exposure, etc. are perfect. Then a cuckoo from the Antrim Hills, not an easy subject outside of paid hide, so this makes a good shot great. Love the perch too, framed perfectly. His next shot is of a grasshopper warbler in Ballycastle. It's important to show habitat when possible with this species, so lots of otherwise messy grass works here. Then we've got a red knot from Belfast. Nice details. The blue-grey is very pleasing to the eye when working top to bottom. Then finally from Alicante, a hoopoe. Really good light on this. And I like that even though the hoopoe isn't totally clear of the grass, it's not an issue. Moving on to Philip Blair. Philip uses a Nikon D500, Z6 and the D750 with a Sigma 100 to 600 lens. His first shot is of a sparrowhawk in County Armagh. Those eyes are captivating, cropped really well to make you wonder what it's looking at. Secondly, a wren. A different looking wren. Composition to me is perfect. Philip's third shot's a curlew from Strangford Lough. Only time I think a wader shot not taken laying down is better is if there's a nice reflection, such as here. Then a dipper in County Tyrone. Love the composition here. 2 for 1 is special. Then a buzzard in County Armagh. The bird is placed superbly in the frame. The look from the bird takes you there. And finally, a jackdaw from County Armagh. The feather turns the pic from nice to very nice. Beautiful light background too. Our next photographer is Plunkett Scullion, who uses a Canon 600D and 800D with a Tamron 300mm and a Sigma 400mm lens. His first shot is of a dipper in Coal Island. A wonderful setting. Would love to have seen the dipper placed more to the left. Nice and sharp though. Secondly, also in Coal Island, a stone chap. Just a bit too dark, I'd say, plus the branch going through the beak is a bit distracting. Plunkett's next one is of a blue tit. A different look at this common bird. Very memorable. And then a long-eared owl. I like the different expressions on the birds. A fun pic. Eye contact, great too. That one, like the rest of Plunkett's, was in Coal Island. And his final shot is of a kingfisher. A colour matching fish. Excellent. Also a different setting to the norm. Very pleasant. Our next photographer is Trevor Harvey, who uses a Nikon D750 with and a Nikon D7100 with a Nikon 70-210. His first shot is of the Ballycarry Bridge Great White Egret, a shot that, although lacking in space around the bird, makes you appreciate the beauty of nature, exposed very nicely. The second is of a house sparrow in Ballyboley. Would have worked better if the half branch at the bottom had been cropped out. Too distracting for me. Then we have a mute swan from Mill Pond in Carrick. Lovely light, serene image, but swan a bit too central. Then we've got a mallard. Water can make a pic special, but the subject here is too far below the photographer for it to matter. Then also in Ballyboley, a blue tit. Very good composition. Tail clear of branch too, so it's a bonus for that. And then the final one from Ballyboley is a buzzard. An achievement not to have the bird fly as soon as you raise the camera, nicely looking into the distance out of the frame. Next we have Jonathan Mitchell, and Jonathan uses a Nikon D850 with a Nikon 200-500mm lens, and all his shots were taken on Rathlin Island. His first is of a Dunlin. Beautiful colours here, nice composition. I feel the shadows have been lifted a bit too much in post-processing, however. His second shot is of a great skua, nicely exposed, needs more space around the wingtips though. His third shot is of a grey heron. I almost love this. Perfect if only the heron was facing the other way or turned around. Fourth one is of a starling. Great that you can still see the eye. Super flight and behaviour shot. Colours and details good. His fifth one is of a wren. Even without zooming in a bit, it's possible to see details are lost as overcropped. And finally, the fulmar. Excellent. Two-tone background, head angle good, sharp throughout. Now we move on to Mervyn Guthrie, who uses a Nikon D500 and Z6 and the Nikon 200-500, 300 and 500mm lens. His first is of a curlew sandpiper at Moreau. I like the raindrops and circles in the water, but again, not that essential eye-level plane. Second shot in Castle Rock is of a magpie. Well done with the exposure, just a bit too busy a background. His third shot is of the infamous nighthawk in Galgorm, and it's a fabulous image of this rarity. Praise for not cropping too much, no need, with those identifying features nicely on show. Then we have a reed bunting from Altacura. Like the raindrops, don't like the fence. Another shot from my row, this time a wheat ear. Head angle not quite there on this image, unfortunately. Nice and sharp otherwise. And finally, also from Altacura, a windchat. And finally from Mervyn, also from Altacura, windchats. Love the rain here. Really nice composition and both in focus nicely. Our next photographer is Thomas Campbell. Thomas uses a Nikon D500 with a Sigma C150 to 600mm lens. His first shot's of a kingfisher at the bar mouth. Very eye-catching, head position and the fish angle spot on. Whites might have blown slightly, stands out to me. The second shot at the bar mouth of a grey heron. Nicely composed, again fish showing well, adds to image quality, just a bit overdone with lightning in post-processing. His third shot of the Ballycarry great white. The light shadow works great here. Water droplets and fish in beak are good too. A red kite from the car in Hilltown, County Down. Fantastic flight shot, a different position to the normal ones. Feathers shown superbly. And then we have a peregrine, again at the bar mouth. Very striking image, nicely isolated from the sea background. Just enough catch light to give life to the eye. And finally, a goldfinch from the car in the Antrim Hills. Beautiful colours and spot on with the composition. The blade of grass in the bottom left diverts my eyes, unfortunately. Our next photographer is David Hill. David uses a Sony A77 with a 70 to 400mm lens. His first shot's taken of a grey heron in Inch in County Donegal. The judge said, very engaging composition, birds spaced out nicely, good mix of colours, one for art lovers. Then we have a gold crest in Londonderry, pleasing colours, head a bit too much in shadow, plus a small bird needs more space around it to give a better idea of its size. Then we've got a Dunlin in McGilligan, birds facing one way and mud ripples seemingly going to opposite way are pleasing to the eye. Then from Ballykelly Bank, a willow warbler. Love the matching colours, good feather detail, raindrops add nicely too. From Carlaverock, a swallow. Fabulous background, great metallic details. Would prefer bird to be placed more to the right of the frame. And finally, a reed bunting from Coolmore. Again, nice complementary colours of bird and surroundings. Mike McLaughlin is up next, and he uses a Canon 77D with a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot of a great crested grebe, taken in County Down, is good in that it tells a story of weather conditions that day. Wind-blown feathers, choppy water, a tad too dark, I'd say. Second shots of Karoo Perinya in the Western Cape in South Africa. Great eye contact and nice dark tones. Stick going into top and tail a bit unfortunate. Then a Buffy pipit from the Kruger National Park. Lovely pose on the bird, big in the frame, works here due to the aforementioned, perfectly exposed. An African green pigeon from Buffelshoek. Kudos for getting a shot of a difficult subject. Neck shadow straight line, slightly distracting, but overall nice. Marabou stork, great portrait of this undertaker bird. Focus quite justifiably is on that impressive bill. And finally, a pale chanting goshawk from the Western Cape. Sky as a background is normally not the best, but works here due to the bird's plumage. Nice pose, good details. Our next photographer is Robert Sargent, who uses a Nikon D750 with a Tamron 100 to 600mm lens. His first shot, taken at Oxford Island, is of a blackbird. Judge said it was superbly exposed, composed and posed. Wonderfully sharp considering the low light. Lovely bouquet. His next shot is taken in Strangford Lough of a redshank. Love the light here, really makes the subject pop. And another one from Strangford Lough, this time Brent geese. A pleasing to the eye composition, and the light is nice too. Robert's fourth shot is of a spotted flycatcher in Dromore. The judge said it had a wonderful bouquet. The branch in the front right is a little distracting, nicely perched though. Then we've got a grey heron from Dundrum, or a number of grey herons. What are they looking at? A very engaging photo. The viewer spends time looking at each bird. The rule of thirds stands out here perfectly. This final shot of a goldcrest at Portmore got a certain charm to it, with a fluffed up subject, perfectly sharp, and yet still looking as small as it is. Next up was John Parkinson, who uses a Canon 7D Mark II and a 60D with his 100 to 400 Mark II lens. His first shot is of a bullfinch at the Ecos Park in Ballymena. Composition fabulous, bird fabulous, pose fabulous, just overlightened in post-processing, background in particular. Second shot in the same place of a hooded crow. Love the textures of both the wood and the crow's feathers, exposed and composed ideally. Then we've got a pied wagtail at Carnlough, a most interesting photo. Those white pebbles make for a different foreground, and good that the wagtail isn't bigger in the frame. A little grebe from the People's Park in Ballymena, a very kaleidoscope image, almost a magic eye type image, a little overcropped as detail being lost in terms of quality. Then we've got a chaffinch at the River Braid, too big in the frame and the head angle just not quite right, but excellent exposure. And then finally an oriental warbler from Xi'an in China, a superb habitat shot, composition spot on, added interest with an open beak. Our next photographer is Lynn Hughes, who uses a Nikon D500 with a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. Her first shot is of a blue tit at Lough Neagh, underexposed, although the beak stands out nicely as a result. Splendid pose on bird. Her second shot from Portmarnock is of an oyster catcher. Those bubbles are very eye-catching. Pose on bird works too. Her next one is of a great northern diver in Wexford. Good pose of the bird, makes you look to see what it's doing. The sea is pleasantly coloured too. Our fourth shot, the Hollywood Banks, is of a redshank. Would love to see an eye level shot here, but I like the horizontal lines of the waves. Our next shot, taken in Somerset, of a reed bunting. I don't mind the moody tones, just the angle of the bird makes it look like the grass is falling or bending downwards. And finally, a curlew at Hollywood Banks. The action of the splashing water is nice. The light is just a bit too harsh. Our next photographer is Linda Thompson, who uses a Panasonic FZ330 bridge camera with a 25 to 600mm lens. Her first shot, taken in Larne, is of a sparrowhawk. It's a shame that the tail and the foot is cut off, but kudos for placing a forward-facing subject to the side of the frame. The next shot of a long-eared owl. What a great subject, wonderful to see, and the photograph is as good as could be, but unfortunately gives off a zoo vibe from the arm and the back of the chair. Her next shot's of a stone chat in County Antrim. Nice to see a small in the frame photo. Nice colours of lichen on the wall. Then we've got a short-eared owl in County Antrim. Very nice. Short-eared owls are ground birds, so this looks natural, and the small amount of post-showing is good too. A great white egret at Larnlough. The backlit fish really stands out. Nice. Good that the large bird still has room to breathe in the frame. And finally, in Larne, a blackcap, almost like a still life with the fruit in the frame. Fabulous details on the bird. Our next photographer is Nigel Moore, who uses a Canon 1DX and a 7D Mark II with a Canon 100 to 400 Mark II and a 500 f4. His first shot in Portrush is of a turnstone. Really sweet light, low level bonus points, all in focus and sharp too. His second shot, taken in Bangor, of black guillemots, a memorable photo due to a nice species, but of course the action makes it special. His third shot is of a kingfisher in Scotland. Great view of the fish, catch light in the eye is good, a real sense of movement here. A black cap then taken in Valencia, perfectly sharp, perfectly lit, pose is really good, and a lovely spiky perch too. The fifth shot's of a curlew taken in the Shetlands, nicely showing its moorland breeding habitat, nicely sized in the frame too. And his final shot, taken from a car, of a black grouse at Coromany, an alert, ready for action pose, nice early morning light reflected in the eye, handsome shot. Jonathan Rossborough's up next with a Canon 7D Mark II and a Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot, taken on Oxford Island, is of a coot. A surprisingly tender moment captured here. Top quality, cropped nicely too. His second shot in the Antrim Hills is of a goldfinch. A background to die for, so it's commendable how much of the photo is focused on that as well as the bird, which is perched nicely too. Then we've got a Lapland bunting at Ramore Head. Nice colour layers and a clean look at this visitor, pleasing to the eye. From the Antrim Hills we have a red grouse. Super light tones here. Bits of grass around the bird are a good thing as makes for a totally natural wild shot. His fifth shot is of a sandwich tern at Larnloch. Everything about this works. Superb. And Jonathan's final shot is of a stonechat in Murloch Bay. The three-tone vertical background is nice, as is the placement of the bird. Good light. Our next photographer, Stephen Dunbar, uses a 7D Mark II with a Canon 400 f2.8. His first shot, taken on County Antrim, is of a peregrine. The fact that half the image has foreground blur really highlights the falcon. Differently nice. His second shot, taken from a boat, of a great skua at Rathlin Island. The light spots in the bouquet are sweet, just a bit too close to the edge of the frame in terms of the wings. Then we have a waxwing in County Antrim, a sweet image showing behaviour not normally seen on our shores from these birds. Quite unique, lovely colours. Then another boat shot, this time of a puffin round Rathlin. Slightly blurred wingtips add to sense of motion. Contours of the sea nice too, well exposed as well. And then we have from County Kerry a chough. The chough, being a tad scruffy looking, is a shame, but the colours are nice throughout. Foreground blur distracts rather than adds to the image. And finally the brown booby in Bray, such a nearly shot. The foot and wingtip missing is a real shame, as the colours, sharpness and details are amazing. Now we've got Dennis Chambers, who had a single shot in. He used a Nikon D500 with a Nikon 300 f4 with a teleconverter, and it's of a robin in Marble Hill, Donegal. Interesting photo due to changing plumage. The eye is nicely shown here, demonstrating that robins also sing at night. Then we've got Russell Birch, who uses a Nikon D7000 with a Tamron 150 to 600mm lens. His first shot is a black guillemot in Bangor Marina. Nice action with wings, feet and water splash all contributing. Good colours too. His second shot, taken at Leighton Moss, of a bullfinch. Top marks for exposure and sharpness. Pose is nice too. Background is a little busy to take the image up a notch. Then we have a coot from RSPB Belfast. Good interaction between arguing coots here. Shame the one bird is only half in the frame. Also at the Wohide, one of our rough. Nice composition here. Little bits of green vegetation add welcome colour to the scene. Then we have a snipe from the same venue. Great view of an often obscured bird. And Russell's final image of a mute swan from Mount Stewart. A delightful scene. Composition is balanced and cygnets facing their parent makes the shot very engaging. Nicely backlit. Leslie Barker is up next, and she uses a Nikon D7200 and a Sony A7 III with a Tamron 150 to 600mm lens. Her first shots of a cormorant at Cumber. The split photo works well here. Sharp head and blurred wings show good technical photography skills. The second shot of a crested tit in Scotland. Great perch, pose, bird and background. Sharp, exposed well too, fab species. Then we've got a jackdaw in Cumber. Good flight shot without sky as a backdrop, so plus points for that. Head perfectly in focus and sharp, well done. Then from a hide in Scotland, an osprey. Shot shows nicely what ospreys do, just not quite enough action for this type of shot. Then we've got a puffin from the Farns. Simple but simply effective with a nice appeasing composition. And finally, a red kite from Scotland. A very crisp image, very well exposed, and the pose of the bird shows the details well. Ian Dickey is our next photographer, and he uses a Canon 7D Mark II and a 90D with a Canon 100-400 Mark II and a 300mm BF. His first shot is of a lesser yellowlegs in County Antrim. Great wing stretch, sharp throughout, beautiful reflection, smooth waters, good species. The second image is of a great northern diver taken in County Londonderry. A truly unique frame. Never seen a flight shot of any diver like this. Sharp, composed well, flying into the frame. Even the sky is nicely gradual in shades. Third shot of an Arctic skew on a sandwich tern. I just wanted a bit more space around the edges, especially in regards to the Arctic skew. Both birds displayed beautifully, however, and detail exceptional. Next shot of a goosander in Scotland. A shot showing the habitat of this species of duck can be found in, so it's good for that reason alone, but the froth and bubbles are great. Then we have a fulmar from Iceland. Everything is perfect here. A stunning image. His final shot is of a swallow in County Antrim. The judge said the open beak makes this flight shot of a fast and hard bird to capture even better. Our final photographer is Anthony Dodds, who uses a 5D Mark III and Mark IV with a Canon 100-400 Mark II, 500 f4 and Sigma Sport 150-600. His first shot is of a brown booby in greystones. The water spray around the bird makes an outstanding photo even better, Milky Way-esque, and the colours are gorgeous. Tony's second shot is of a jackdaw taken in Belfast. Judge said, great detail. I like the different shades of grey and silver, and the eye is a central focal point for the viewer, making you wonder what it's looking at. Next we have a crested lark taken in the Algarve, showing the crest nicely. Good rule of thirds with nice two-tone background, and flowers, grasses are nice. Lark a bit too central for my tastes. The malachite kingfisher in South Africa, a bit in between with being backlit and in shade, so hard to expose for, hence the eye of the bird makes it somewhat soulless. The nighthawk, County Antrim, a classic shot of one of this family of birds, nicely composed, shows where they like to roost. And finally a white-fronted kingfisher in Israel, a shot that would have been spoiled by having a man-made object and it gets away with it due to the depth of field, making a nice different effect. And so that concludes the judge's comments on all the individual images that he judged in this year's competition. But he did make some further general comments. He said, the standard this year is definitely higher than when I judged last in 2019, and this in turn made choosing the winners much harder than I anticipated. The variety of quality species at an array of locations across the globe, as well as the homegrown favourites, made looking at the images a pleasurable experience, and like you all, I'm excited for future excursions with my camera, as I've seen some pretty inspiring stuff from you guys, courtesy of this competition. Congrats to the winners. There are many factors that determine one's choices when selecting from so many top images, but for me, a truly great photo is one that you can remember and visualize again long after first seeing it, and that certainly applies to all those I've chosen here. Well done, everyone. And so we move on to the long-awaited announcement of the winning images of the Work of Northern Ireland Bird Photographers for 2021. As I mentioned earlier, in the junior category we had no entries. So we move straight on to the beginners category. And first of all, we have in the commended, we've got Ryan Campbell for his image of a chestnut-headed bee-eater taken in Sri Lanka. Also commended is Jenny Bradley's image of a sand martin. Highly commended then is Stephen McComb for his image of a long-eared owl. In third place, Paul McGahey's image of a sparrowhawk taken in his garden. In second place, Jonathan Cook's image of a goldcrest in typical goldcrest pose. And the winning image for this year is Stephen McComb's shot of a puffin taken in the Saltese. Well done, Stephen. And Stephen wins the Simon McElreevy Salver for the winning image in the beginner section. In the portfolio section, in third place was Ryan Campbell's portfolio of a chestnut-headed bee-eater taken in Sri Lanka, black-collared hawk taken in Colombia, and a rufous-collared sparrow taken in Bogota. In second place was Jonathan Cook's portfolio of the goldcrest, a little egret, and stonechat. And the winning portfolio for this year was Stephen McComb's triplet of long-eared owl taken in Lady Dixon Park, puffin taken on the Saltese in County Wexford, and a greater spotted woodpecker. And so Stephen takes home the Tom Ennis Cup for the winning portfolio in the beginner section. And so we move on to the prize-winning images in the intermediate section. Firstly, commended Albert Boyle's image of gulls squabbling in Portrush Harbour. Also commended Juliet Fleming for her image taken in County Down of a pied wagtail. Highly commended then was Justin Judge's image of a mute swan taken at Oxford Island. In third place, Kevin Kirkham with his image of a sparrowhawk taken in Lisburn. Second place goes to Sam Price for his kingfisher study taken in Cardiff. And our winning image in the intermediate section goes to Swarup Sanker Savidasan for his grey heron shot taken at the Bog Meadows in Belfast. And Swarup Sanker gets the C. Douglas Dean or Jimmy Dean trophy for that winning image in the intermediate section. Third place in the portfolio section in the intermediate category went to Albert Boyle for his portfolio of a grey heron taken in peatlands and Dungannon. Common tern taken in Rockabill, just off the coast of Dublin. And the image of the gulls squabbling in Portrush Harbour. Second place in the portfolio section went to Justin Judge for his images of a hoopoe taken in Athens in Greece. his mute swan image taken in Oxford Island, and his oyster catcher taken on Mew Island in the Copelands. And the winning portfolio goes to Sam Price for his kingfisher shot taken in Cardiff, for his great white egret taken in Ballycarry, and his third image of a Eurasian jay taken in Cardiff. And Sam receives the Martin McCurry Salver for the winning portfolio in the intermediate category. And so we move to the winning images in the advanced category. Commended Mervyn Campbell for his shot of a hen harrier taken in the Antrim Hills. Also commended Stuart McQueen. Stuart's shot is of a green heron, the shot taken in Costa Rica. Also commended Jonathan Mitchell, this time of a fulmar taken in Rathlin Island. Also commended Robert Sargent for his image taken at Oxford Island of a blackbird. And also commended Mervyn Campbell's image taken in the Antrim Hills of a cuckoo. And the final commended shot then goes to Richard Smith for his shot of a Talamanca hummingbird taken in Costa Rica. Highly commended was Robert Sargent's shot taken in County Down in Dundrum of grey herons and egrets. In third place was Ian Dickey's image of a Great Northern Diver taken in County Londonderry. In second place, taken in Greystones in County Wicklow, was Tony Dodd's shot of a brown booby. And our winning image for the competition for this year was Ian Dickey's wonderful image taken in Iceland of a fulmar. And so Ian takes home the Robbie Brown Trophy for the best image in the advanced category. Moving on then to the portfolio section, and in third place was Nigel Moore's portfolio of a turnstone taken in Portrush, black guillemots fighting in Bangor Harbour, kingfisher taken in the south of Scotland, female blackcap taken in the Valencia region of Spain, a curlew taken on the island of Unst in the Shetland Isles, and finally a black grouse taken at the RSPB Reserve in Coromany in Scotland. In second place was Slavomir Starzinski and his portfolio of a Eurasian rock pipit taken in Portrush, a corncrake taken on the island of Iona, oyster catcher and redshank taken in Portrush, puffins from the Treshnish Isles in Scotland, a wren taken in Ballyronan, and finally rufous-tailed hummingbird taken in Costa Rica. But our winning portfolio goes to Ian Dickey for his lesser yellowlegs taken in County Antrim, his Great Northern Diver shot taken in County Londonderry, his Arctic skua and sandwich tern also taken in County Londonderry, Goosander, taken in Scotland. His winning image of the Fulmar, taken in Iceland. And his wonderful swallow shot, taken in County Antrim. And Ian gets the Arthur Hobson Salver for the winning portfolio in the advanced section. The judge's favourite image, taken in Northern Ireland, goes to Ian Dickey for his flight shot of the Great Northern Diver. Well done, Ian. For that, he gets the John Gould Cup, and we congratulate all the photographers who took part. Thank you for participating, showing us some wonderful images, and we leave you with the winning image for 2021, Ian Dickey's iconic image of a Fulmar taken in Iceland. Well done, everyone. Thank you very much.